these are the Maersk headquarters. Maersk is one of the largest container shipping lines in the entire world, sailing out to 123 different countries. And the building itself is meant to resemble their craft. Do you see it? Containers stacked one upon another in rows upon rows. My, how imaginative. And we also get the blue color here on the tent in their logo. That is a Maersk blue. They own that particular shade of blue for commercial use worldwide. Now, as you can tell, they got quite the construction project going on here at the Maersk company. The tent's encased in steel beams. They're putting together their new headquarters in there. And they put up the tents to keep the construction workers nice and dry in all kinds of weather. Pretty considerate. Of course, they also put up the tents so they can eventually drop the cloth for the grand reveal of their new headquarters some years from now. And we're all waiting with bated breath to see whether we get another stack of containers. You'll also notice on our right hand side here we have this long stretch of the garden. This is the Amelia Garden, the foreground to what may very well be the most jaw-dropping backdrop we're going to experience on the tour. That being Amalienborg Palace in its entirety. We're going to be able to look directly into the palace yard in just a little moment. Amalienborg Palace, it dates back to 1749 and was originally built for a handful of noble families. However, due to a fire in 1794, the old royal castle, known as Christiansborg Castle, burned to the ground. And so the royal family had to move. They moved out here, where they remained, making this the Royal Palace of Denmark. And as we skirt along the waves here, we have the beautifully lit fountain there in the center, and our view into the palace yard comes up just now. Now it's a little dark, of course, but if you squint your eyes you can see an equestrian statue in the center of the yard, and that is King Frederick V, the king behind the palace, as well as the marble church in the far back. And the marble church was a grand undertaking, mainly in that it cost a bit too much money. So for 145 years it stood there unfinished, a bit of an eyesore really, until they finally scraped together the means necessary to crown it with the largest church dome in the entirety of Scandinavia, and it is absolutely marvelous. On the inside, the outside, well worth a visit if you haven't been. If you see it in the weekends, you can also get to see the dome on the inside as well. That's when you want to go. Up on our left-hand side, a second pass at the Opera House and also the Opera Park, which is the green area we have right next to it. It was also a gift from the Maersk company and it was finished just last year in October. After delay upon delay upon delay, it was finally ready right in time for winter. We didn't get to enjoy it that much for a little while, but finally spring and summer came along and it started making a lot of sense. What they have in here are 6 different climates plucked from different corners of Scandinavia, all trained to live in here in this area. And it's a wild park, so if you take a walk in there you can sort of go through all kinds of corners of Scandinavia as the nature would be arranged by itself. There's also a restaurant in the center and a large parking space underneath the area, where there's a spiral you drive around to get down there, and in the center of the spiral a massive tree trunk going up into the park. Quite a beautiful design altogether. Now in just a little moment we are going to make our way into the Christianshavn Canal. Christianshavn was built by Christian IV, a very notorious king here in Denmark, for a variety of different achievements. For instance, he had 23 children, most of whom were unintentional, and he also started a lot of wars, of which we didn't win a single one. Not the most beloved of kings. But I'll tell you what, he had an eye for architecture, and we're going to see elements of that as we make our way into the Christianshavn Canal in just a moment. In fact, once we get in there, you might notice a certain likeness between Christianshavn and Amsterdam. Not accidental. The king was hoping to lure some rich Dutch salesmen to this part of our harbour to pay the Danish tax. Unfortunately though, the Dutch were not very interested in mini Amsterdam. They had the bigger model back home. And the Danes didn't want to move in either. And so 400 years ago, when Christianshavn was finished and ready to go, it was given away for free. In fact, if you moved in back then, you didn't have to pay taxes for 12 years, just for moving in. And the reason why it was so unpopular, the king would literally pay you just to live here, well, that's because of islets like this one on our right. Back then, the foundation was so muddy, most of the original buildings crashed into the ocean. But it was tax-free, so not too bad. Of course, the paver island now being a little bit further along, it has been given this area here on our left, and as you can tell, people are loving it. We've got some food joints up here, access to the harbour where people bathe throughout the day, at least on a Sunday side. Lots of room for lounging. Over on our right hand side, this is another street food market, a little bit closer to Nyhavn where we're going to end our tour. So if you want to, you can just head over the bridge, arrive here, get a delicious meal. I've been up here as well, can recommend this one too. I believe it's backed by Noma, of course, which is known worldwide for how brilliant their chefs are. Definitely consider a visit up there. Bit pricey, but really delicious. Now, as I promised you, we're about to go into the Christianshavn Canal, and as we get in there, we're going to be entering for the next little while a quiet zone. Indeed, there's a bunch of bridges I can mention, and one church, but otherwise I'm going to disappear for a little while right after this bridge here. That's why I told you so much about the canal ahead of time. But as we go through there, take in the beautiful sights of this Amsterdam-inspired canal. And otherwise, I'll take a little trip through the boat, take any questions if you have them. Mind your heads, everyone. Thank you. And otherwise, this marks the start of the quiet zone.
In quella barchetta perché? Anche voi dormire di tutte le volte i poteri dei vento e quindi avessi tutto libero ti ho fatto vedere un vento dalla Madonna e perché è un vento temporale fortissimo alla Madonna sì, deve fare la Madonna perché ha fatto questo? Perché? Perché voi lo dice? Perché noi siamo i vostri siamo i lavori e la
So, coming up here in just a moment, we have another bridge. And then right after the bridge, we're going to have a small opportunity, tiny moment, where we can get a picture of Our Saviour's Church in here on our left-hand side. No doubt some of you have noticed the beautiful church tower with the spiraling staircase and the outside of the spire. We're going to see that church in its entirety for all of one whopping second. If you want a picture, have your devices ready and pointed in that direction. If you want to see the church, I suggest not blinking. It's coming up after the bridge on our left-hand side. Once again, that is after the bridge, everyone. Remain seated, mind your heads. And then we'll have the church on our left-hand side. And here in the front of the boat, directly here on our left-hand side, you have the beautiful church. 400 steps all the way up to the top. It's quite a walk for a good view, but you get yourself a beautiful view if you take the trip all the way up to the top. Indeed, for just 60 Danish kroner, you can walk up there, look all the way over to Sweden if you so prefer. And of course, in the far back of the boat, where you're being so patient, here's your moment coming up. Between the bridge and the tree, the perfect moment to get a picture of the church in its entirety, and that is Our Saviour's Church. If any of you accidentally got a picture of the tree instead, don't worry about it. It's the most popular tree in Copenhagen. Has its very own Facebook page dedicated to the many pictures that missed the church throughout the year. So you can go on Facebook, look up the most famous tree in Copenhagen, and upload your picture there. Directly ahead of the boat, we are now approaching the second lowest bridge in the tour. The second lowest bridge. And it is a rising tide, so who knows, maybe it's the lowest by now. So remain seated, everyone, and mind your heads. It really counts here. If you're tall, it's a good time not to be. The second lowest bridge. So, directly ahead of the boat we have the Circle Bridge, designed by Olafur Eliasson, whom you might recall from the chandeliers over in the Opera House. Well, he does more than just light installations, he also does bridges. And as it so happens, this is my favourite bridge in the tour. I think it's quite brilliant. He wanted it to blend in with the harbour atmosphere, and so he made masts out of the bridge. 5 crow's nests linked together to create that illusion of an old-fashioned ship. Mind your head, it's still a bridge. Thank you. Circular in design because he also wanted it to be a place for meeting and not just a place for crossing. Directly ahead of the boat now, we have this large black building. This is the newest part of the Royal Library, dating back to 1999, and it is known as the Black Diamond. As you can see, the building leans 7 degrees towards the water surface, so that when the sun is just right in the morning, it reflects off of the ocean and is cast up on the side, making it glow and glitter as were it a diamond, hence the name, the Black Diamond. You want to see it around 10:30 to 11 o'clock in the morning. That's the time of the day where it's most beautiful. You get that glittering effect, but honestly for me, I also like it here late in the evening where you can see it reflecting some city lights, and of course the lights on within, especially when you see it in the winter when there's a lot more lights on over on the other side. It's glittering away even in the late evening. A little bit of snow on top. That's just about as good as it can get. As you can see here on your right hand side, we also have, of course, a bit of a sporting event going on, a swimming marathon that's going on here. Lots of people wearing all kinds of colours. It's a very beautiful sight. I actually had no idea it was going to have a light be part of it, but here it is on our right hand side. Look at all those many colours shining brilliantly across the surface. Very beautiful. And it is a whole horde of people swimming in there. I'll tell you what, it's been crazy here throughout the day. Just now we'll be able to get a glimpse into the canal. We can't go in there today obviously as it's closed off. They're swimming around the canal specifically. It's about a nautical mile, a little bit above really, for them to take this whole trip here. And if you take a look into the canal, you can just see how many lights are bobbing on the waters in there. So many people swimming through the canal. A little bit cool here in the late part of the day as well, so you've got to take your hat off to it. Well done. Wow, very beautiful. Lovely little surprise there. Now, we are going to be going out into the southern harbour here. Just a little trip out there. We will make a swing, show you some lights and some beautiful houses. And as we head out into the southern harbour, we're going to go under 2 bridges. The one the furthest away from us is the oldest of the 2, also the largest one. They gave it a very straightforward name. They named it Langebro. That's Danish for long bridge. The one we're going under now, of course, a little bit more modern, newer, smaller. They gave that an even more straightforward name. Lille Langebro, smaller long bridge. Now, Lille Langebro, of course, is intended for bicyclists and pedestrians only, and is part of Copenhagen's many attempts to try to become the best bicycling capital in the world. We're trying to steal the title from Amsterdam. We still have quite a far distance to go before we get there, but we'll settle for 2nd place for now. And here, of course, we're moving out into the southern harbour. Lots of lights along the quay. If you look here to your right hand side now, we have Kalvebodbrygge. That's loosely translated to Calf Booth Quay. And the reason why it was named Calf Booth is because we used to have meadows here. Meadows and fields right at the corner of, or right at the border of Copenhagen, where you'd have grazing cattle as far as the eye could see. A very beautiful and lively spot, full of life. Of course, industrialization came along, and with it, the decision to remove all the fields and to pave the way for offices and hotels. No apartments, no condos. So what was once this lively, beautiful green spot, well, it became kind of dead and quiet. Not quite what it had once been. And they received a lot of critique for that, especially if you look over here on your left-hand side, you can see the neighbor over here at the Iceland Quay. They have the open tree plan, folks gathering out here for communal events several times a year, whether it's communal feasts, open mic, or just football events, all kinds of things. And the neighborhood over here at the Iceland Quay actually fought very hard against the commune of Copenhagen in order to secure that area. And again, over on our right hand side, not quite the same atmosphere. This is why they made the wave, and although it's pretty dark right now, you might be able to see we have a little bit of a boardwalk out here. You can see just some of the posts going down into the water. It's encased in this rusty iron, and they actually managed with the wave to create a little bit of a hotspot in this part of Copenhagen. Whenever the sun's out, people are swarming down here, whether it's to walk the dog or simply enjoy a dip into the water. It actually managed to bring just a little bit of life back to the Kalvebodbrygge Quay. For that they did receive a bit of praise once again. As we turn out here on your right hand side, we have this little floating cocktail bar you can see here with a lot of beautiful lights. It's the Green Island of Copenhagen. You can arrive by boat if you want to, and they'll serve you cocktail drinks right down into the boat. You can bring them with you out and throughout the canals. Very lovely. Lots of festivity going in there right now, it seems like. And they also have saunas on the side of the floating cocktail bar there, so you can also enjoy a little visit to one of those, especially in the winter when it's known as the Winter Island of Copenhagen. As we turn here, the Iceland Quay unfurls itself before our eyes on our right hand side. And in just a moment we're going to see a unique harbour bath. It's out a little bit further ahead of us, but I'll tell you about it a little ahead of time. You see, the Iceland Quay is named the Iceland Quay because we used to have ferries leaving to Iceland from this spot when it was still part of the Danish kingdom. But that ebbed out in the 1940s when they gained their independence, and so the ferries disappeared. All but one in the shape of this nautical-inspired harbour bath, essentially representing the last ferry leaving to Iceland here, even if it's a little stationary. I'm told if you see it directly from above, you can really take in the nautical design they wanted for this ship's shape it has. And even here from ground level, I feel like you can still get that sense of maritime themes. We also get on our right hand side this little boat rental here. You can see we have a bunch of dark blue boats bobbing in the waters here. These are the go boats. If you've been walking throughout the capital today along the canals, you might have noticed these go boats. You can actually rent these without a license. You don't need any proof of you being able to sail a boat or even drive a car. You can just drop some money and then you can get a trip into one of these boats. Go boat, just like a go-kart, except there's of course some larger beasts out in the water. But you're welcome to try it. I've been told it's incredibly cozy, and then you can also cause a little bit of chaos for me and my colleagues. We'd love to have you. We are currently sailing through one of the cleanest harbours in Europe today due to a lot of work between WWF, so well as Stroma and other authorities out here in our harbour. And one of the most recent things we've done here in our waters is that we've been putting bio huts into the ocean. So to the uninitiated, a bio hut is a large steel cage with oyster shells and mussels inside. We hang them alongside the docks down into the waters, where they then provide safe areas for the endangered fish species here in our harbour. Here the fish can swim on into the cages and hide from larger predators and enjoy a little meal in the meantime. So we've been sailing alongside hundreds of small fish hotels for the entire tour. On our left-hand side, we have a green building with blocks written on the side. Blocks is home to the Danish Architecture Centre, and the building is meant to resemble Lego blocks that have been put together spontaneously. They chose the Lego motif specifically as by their logic, every great Danish architect begins with Lego. Granted, Lego is a Danish invention, so there might be a bit of bias at play. We also get here on our left-hand side, you see this large red brick building here. A little hard to see in the darkness, but you do see it. This is Christian IV's brew house, dating back to 1680. From this brew house, the king at the time, Christian IV, he would give out to each Danish soldier 10 liters or 2.6 gallons of beer every day. Every day. That was just part of the pay back then. You see, the water in Copenhagen, so well as the surrounding area, it was too polluted to drink. And so, we Danes, we survived off of beer, of course. Even the children got to drink back then. Thankfully though, the alcohol percentage was a great deal lower, so it wasn't entirely terrible. And that was lucky, because we drank a lot. Between 4 to 6 liters per adult a day, 2 to 4 liters per child. And that was because we ate so much salted, smoked and dried food back then, we were always working up a thirst. And how did you deal with that thirst? With beer. On an entirely unrelated note, we also lost all of the wars back then. No idea why. As we go along this stretch here, over here on our right hand side, we have a number of modern buildings designed by Henning Larsen, the same man behind the Opera House. And just as with the Opera House, he wanted to give these ones a very special facade. You see, the parts of the building facing up towards us were actually built with laid-in elements of copper. So over the next 100 years, these buildings are going to oxidize until they look like the rest of the copper spires or statues we have out around our harbour. A genius decision on behalf of the architect, of course. If you don't fancy them now, just wait 100 years and they'll look exactly how I intended. Directly ahead of the boat, we have the Knibbelsbro Bridge. The Knibbelsbro Bridge is known most of all for the two culture towers. You can see we have one on either side. The one over here on our right used to be a little wine bar slash cafe situation. It was very cozy in there. It was really elbow to elbow while you'd enjoy your snacks or drink. You get to know each other. Unfortunately though, just a couple of months ago they had to close due to financial reasons. So it's sort of empty right now, and we're all waiting to see what other kind of ideas people might get for the culture tower there on our right hand side. The one that's coming up over on our left, right after the bridge here, is actually quite empty and has always been empty, but also available to the public. So you can kind of just head in there, go up, explore a bit and get a modest view out over the area. Now the next one, and of course things become darker and darker as the night progresses, but if you look here to your right hand side, you'll notice we have this long white building, green doors and an orange roof. This is the Nikolai Eidwill warehouse that was named after the man who built it, Nikolai Eidwill, and it's quite famous for having two very distinct sides. The story goes that the king at the time could see this building up here on our right, up from his spot in Christiansborg Castle, and given that the king could see it, it had to be beautiful, of course. And so Eidwill installed the green gates, the arches, the windows you can see here on our right, but the other side the king could not see. So keep your eyes on the building and you can tell how interested Eidwill was in the opinion of the rest of Denmark. Oh yes. One side lined with the beautiful green gates and the arches for His Majesty, and the other side, well, it almost looks like a half-finished prison. Up here on our left-hand side, you'll notice we have some rounded street corners, very prominent out throughout Copenhagen. This is because they're a practical solution to a problem we used to have many years ago. The fire trucks used to have ladders that were so long they couldn't turn around the corners properly unless they were rounded first. What was once a practical solution has since become an aesthetic touch, a little nod to the firefighters of old. You'll also notice on our left-hand side this long green building. This is the old ferry terminal and customs office here in our harbour. We used to have a lot of ferry traffic in these waters, but that is until the year 2000 came along, where we built the Öresund Bridge, spanning between Denmark and Sweden. So all the ferry traffic slowly moved on over there. Since then, the ferry terminal has been home to many different concepts: nightclubs, jazz clubs, restaurants, the like. There's still a restaurant in there if you want to look inside. But predominantly it's home today to a private club of artists and designers in Copenhagen. So the next big creative idea is being thought of in there as we speak, or more likely they're just having a lot of drinks. I'm told it's an important part of the creative process. Directly ahead of the boat we have a bridge spanning from one side of the inner harbour all the way over to the other side of the inner harbour. You'll never guess its name. It's the Inner Harbour Bridge. Yes, the Inner Harbour Bridge, also known for its nickname the Kissing Bridge, as the two sides do not open upwards. Now they slide apart and then back together, where they meet in the middle for a smooch. The Kissing Bridge. As we go under the Kissing Bridge, if you look to your left-hand side, you'll be able to see an insight into the powers of play whenever the bridge slides open. Indeed, the main spool mechanism is lit up for the eye to see. Well, either here on our left or on our right, whichever you prefer. Now then, as I mentioned, the water has been rising, and as we return to the Nyhavn Canal, unfortunately we will not be able to go under the bridge in there. But look ahead at the transformation. We left here when the sun was just barely, its rays were still here in the sky, and now you can instead see the lights down the canal. We're going to drop you off right here by the bridge, and of course, otherwise, all that remains to be said here is if you have any trash, please leave the trash cans down the mid-walk. Remember your personal belongings and mind your step as you get off the boat. Really, I have had a wonderful trip with all of you. I hope you've had a good one with me. Have a great evening in Copenhagen, and thank you very much. It appears we're going to let you off by the Nyhavn Bridge instead, pardon that, but we'll be getting off over here in just a moment. Thank you.